Johannesburg Roads Agency has issued a stern warning, revealing that 80% of bridges in the city are on the brink of collapse. Out of 902 bridges in Johannesburg, 702 are reportedly in a critical state. The JRA attributes the delay in repairs to severe budget constraints. Well, to discuss these structural concerns and potential solutions, we are joined by Professor Richard Walls, who is structural and fire engineering expert at Stellenbosch University. Prof, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I say 80%, I think a really great way to just make that picture really sink in is if you say 4 out of 5 bridges in Johannesburg are near collapse. Are you surprised by those numbers?
Maintenance is a big issue. Maintenance is expensive, and maintenance is very time-consuming and requires a lot of well-trained people. So I'm not sure if near collapse maybe, but I mean, if I look through the media reports, it seems, for instance, 12 bridges specifically are critical, and there's a range. But yes, it does seem that from what they're saying, 80% of the bridges are in need of repair in different stages from, seems from small to quite significant.
Yeah, because I mean, to say the brink of collapse is quite a thing to say. So when you say there are, 12 that are critical, what does that mean?
Well, yeah. At the moment, there's, I mean, I've only seen some of the limited reports coming out, but there is an index, and depending on what infrastructure you're inspecting, the different ways of doing it, but there is an index. And so in the reports I've seen, they're saying 12 of them are very poor. So that could mean a whole range of things, from severe corrosion to damage to parts missing to a whole range of things. So I'm not sure what exactly. You'd have to have a look at each bridge individually, but it does appear they are a significant concern. And the problem is you're always going to spend money on maintenance. It's just a question of whether you're going to spend less now or more later. Yeah. So, yeah, that's where we are.
Because we can certainly speak about the issues that the Johannesburg Roads Agency has raised around budget constraints, and I think we'll get to that. But for the sake of the viewer and the motorist who's listening, in fact, anyone who's traveling anywhere, they're wondering, are our bridges safe to cross? That's the real concern for the average South African.
That is a legitimate concern. I don't know. With these, as I said, it's very difficult without going to each one individually and seeing what the state and how bad the damage is. It is concerning that these reports are in the media, and it is concerning that they're being acknowledged. So typically, bridges have quite a high design load for very heavily loaded vehicles, flood conditions, etc. So are we likely to see one fall over today? Probably not. However, if this does continue and we do have, let's say, a big flood arrive, or very heavy special load trucks driving through, could we see failure? That starts becoming more and more possible. And I hope that they are addressing, especially the critical bridges, very quickly and making sure that they are safe. So yeah, I hope that we're going to see significant progress in the near future.
Yeah. However, you do have cases where we're following the storms, for instance, in the Eastern Cape and in KZN. And we've seen there massive infrastructure collapse as a result of the weather. So this data looking particularly at Johannesburg, but do we have similar concerns in other parts of the country?
The infrastructure in general and maintenance in general is a problem. And what we have seen, as I said, I can't speak for a specific organization, but across the board, there's been a significant erosion in the technical capacity of a lot of municipalities. If you look at the data of the number of professionally registered, experienced engineers in the municipalities, your PR engineers, PR techs, has declined significantly over the years. So there's a lot less capacity, a lot less experience. And that has a significant long-term impact. Yes, there perhaps is corruption in many of the municipalities. All of those are eating away at what should be done to maintain. And also often maintenance is not a sort of a sexy thing that wins you votes. A nice new bridge or park or something is what people brag about. But boring maintenance, fixing things up, repainting, chiseling out broken stuff, it's not exciting. So often it doesn't get prioritized and emphasis put on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think about new bridges in KZN, for instance. There's the Umvoti Bridge project that began in 2016. Of course, there's a question around what the update is on that one. So there's 2 issues to look at here. Now we can talk about resources, if you'll allow me, Prof, because There's the issue of, okay, how are we dealing with, in fact, building new infrastructure and ensuring that those projects actually do take place within the timeframes that they're set to do so, within budget? And then when it comes to infrastructure, the Johannesburg Roads Agency, for instance, saying budget constraints are the reason why they are unable to upgrade our infrastructure. Is that valid?
So it'll depend, because you've got various organizations managing. So firstly, from the question of new infrastructure, I mean, SANRAL has done a lot of excellent work, many new infrastructure projects. That there has been construction mafia issues, etc. But there's many good things happening, ongoing maintenance, etc. The South African Institute of Civil Engineers has produced an excellent infrastructure report card, which speaks this, provides a lot of data. Municipal level, yes, there are definitely problems. Maintenance, ongoing problems. And we are going to, see this, and then if we lose a bridge, something happens, then it's going to cost a fortune, and what ends up, then you have even less resources. And let's say now there's some sort of catastrophic event. God forbid it, I hope not. But let's say that there is now a collapse and a truck falls down, and then there's court cases and there's even less resources. So what we need to do is prioritize resources. You will also see differences in how far the money gets in the different municipalities. Some, it does seem to be getting a lot further, and there seem to be more maintenance for the resources available. So that should be looked at. So I can't comment necessarily without going in detail on the JR's details, but we should then compare it to other municipalities. Say, okay, based on how many roads, how many kilometers they have, how far is it going relative to other municipalities? Is it fair or is it not? Do they need a budget increase, or is the money not making it and not being as efficiently used as it could be?
Yeah, I mean, Wayne Duvenage, for instance, of OUTA has said that the issue of budget constraints for the Johannesburg Roads Agency simply isn't a good enough excuse, saying there is money there, it just isn't being used where it should be used. So that's obviously a bigger conversation. And we have seen horrible bridge collapses in parts of the country. I think about June this year, a collapse in the Eastern Cape that forced pupils to walk 6 kilometers to school. And that's, of course, in the Eastern Cape. Here, the focus, of course, being Johannesburg. Talk to me before we wrap up about whether or not we have the right institutional infrastructure now. And by that, I mean, do we have the right systems in place to say, well, if the infrastructure upgrades aren't taking place, we are going to step in and force those maintenance projects?
That's very difficult to say at municipal level, because I think the very fact that this data is in the media and is being discussed points to a problem. Because, I mean, if you look historically, these reports didn't just pop up overnight. You've got bridges that maybe are 20, 30, 40, 50 years old. And when was the last time maintenance done? So this didn't happen in the last 6 months. This has been coming for many years, perhaps decades. And so we have the engineering capacity in the country in terms of our consultancies and the contractors, etc. Not perfect, but we've got it there, and we can make things happen. From a municipal level, it's we need to see it rolling out, and the money making it through tenders to contractors, to engineers, and making things happen. We can do this. I mean, the South African Institute of Civils has done some really good work. And I mean, if the JRA needs be, they'll be in their offices next week helping them put plans together. So this can be dealt with. We just need to make sure that it's not rocket science. It's just to make sure basic good planning, maintenance, and ongoing things are done. Could more budget be needed? Very possibly. But is the resources being used? I think that needs to be looked at very carefully.
Yeah, Prof, an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time this